Right guys, Dan Hendriksen here. We're at St Mellion Golf Club today and we're out doing a little series. We've just gone and done the back nine at St Mellion's Nicholas course. Been out there with my brother and James Ruth and Will, and you'll see that series coming out, or if you've not already seen it, I'll pop a little link in the description down below. Now, we are out on the old course, which is actually now known as the Kerno course, and we found a hole. It's one of the older holes, but they still maintain the green really quite well. So we thought we'd do a little short game thing for you today, and what I'm keen to find out is about Plumb Bob. I want to see how good the Plumb Bob is, because I've used Plumb Bob with my putting, and I'll show you how that works in just a moment, but I've used Plumb Bob for years, probably 20 years that I've used it for now, and I want to actually see, does it actually work? I use it as a rough guide rather than an actual precise point of where I'm trying to aim, but it just gives me a gauge on what the slopes are doing. So let's get my brother involved and let's put Plumb Bob up against his AimPoint. See, do you remember when I first used or first learnt how to use Plumb Bob?
I don't remember when it was.
Okay, but you've seen me use Plumb Bob, and
yeah.
what do you think of me actually using it?
I don't really understand it, if I'm honest.
Okay.
And I have tried it a little bit, but I can't really get to grips with it.
So I first learnt how to use it when we went to Sweden. So Paul and I, as junior golfers, we were members at Chersten Golf Club. We used to do this exchange with, so there would be 10 junior members from Chersten that would go over to Sweden and play against Vassatorp's 10 junior members over there. And then the year later they'd come back and it'd be like a Ryder Cup week, wouldn't it? It was fantastic, amazing experience. Good fun. So we played a foursomes match at Vassatorp in the actual game against two brothers over there, Hampus and Markel, two very good golfers in their day. I don't know if they still play, but two very good golfers. And I remember Markel using the Plumb Bob then, so I was probably 15 or 16 years old.
Yeah.
Now, he showed me kind of how to figure out what Plumb Bob is and how it kind of works. Now, what he said was that you've got to get a point of where you mark the golf ball as you look through the break. So you stand behind the ball, you look between the ball and the hole, and you pick a point. The ball sits over the top of the point in the putter. Now, to find the point in the putter, what you do is you find the balance point in the putter. Okay. So it would be, let's say, and back in those days we had like steps in the putters, remember, in the shafts? So it's quite easy to figure out what the point was, because so I roughly gauge that it's the middle point is about there, and you let the putter hang. And then when you bring it over, you can put the ball over that point. You let the putter just hang from that point there, and then you put the ball between this point, and then as the shaft goes up towards the hole, that shaft will lean one side or the other side of the hole, and obviously sometimes it goes straight over the top of the hole, but it gives you a rough guide as to where the break would be on that particular green or that particular putt. Nothing you've come across?
No, but I'm just thinking with that, it must depend then on how you're stood, does it?
Well, correct. So when you're stood on the slope behind the ball, obviously it depends on how you sort of work. And like you said there, or in AimPoint, you use your feet to kind of get a gauge on the slope. This one kind of does it for you. Okay. Now, like I said, I don't use it as a precise thing, but I will use it if I'm really sort of struggling with reading a putt. I will use Plumb Bob, and I will use it for longer putts. But what I wanted to do today, following on from your AimPoint video that you did for everybody, was get a gauge as to how my Plumb Bob comes up against your AimPoint. Yep. Ready?
And then we can use the Perfect Putter as well.
We'll use the Perfect Putter device to actually read the putt for us.
Yes.
And then we'll hit some putts, and I'll tell you where I'm reading it to, and then you can tell me where the actual, where the slope is and what percentage it is, and then what the actual break should be. Cool. Okay.
Let's do that. Yeah.
So what I do first things first is I back away about 3 paces. Yep. So I walk away about 3 paces. Now I'm actually off the surface here, so and I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure where the slope is. I think it might just move a little bit from left to right on this particular putt. It's not. It's only going to be subtle break on this one.
Why do you go 3 paces?
Because it gives me enough. I've just learnt that over the years to see that that's pretty much where I want to be. Then what I do there is I get my point of where my sort of centre point is with the putter, the balance point. I hover that over the golf ball there, let the putter just sort of hang, and then I close, so I might use my dominant eye. Yeah. Okay, so I close my left eye because my right eye is my dominant eye, and then at that point there, the shaft is now hanging, and I've got it at this point here. So my AimPoint is about there. which is basically where if I stand directly behind the ball and the hole, when I then hover that now the middle of the shaft that runs up through is bang on over the top of that T-peg.
Okay.
So I want to get a gauge as to what would you be reading this at with an AimPoint point of view, and then we get the perfect putt to roll it and see what it would do. So from the point of where my golf ball is, what have you got there?
We're pretty much 2% of slope from there.
Okay.
I'll just move it down here to see if that changes a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe 1.5 down here, so it's not breaking as much the closer it gets to the hole.
Okay.
So it's going to be somewhere between 2% and 1.5%.
Yeah.
So what I can then do is come back here, and then I'll take using my finger. So I'll try 2% to start with.
Yeah.
So 2% is giving me just outside your marker, and then sort of 1.5% is going to pretty much be on your marker.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not
so
far off.
We've come to a similar conclusion.
Yeah, I would probably, if it was me hitting this putt, I'd probably give it slightly more than what you've given it, so I'd probably give it the 2%.
Okay.
But
well, can we now put the perfect putt on it, get the ball rolling, and just see what happens?
Try it, yeah. I think it's quite impressive how this just shows that the putt is pretty much going to do exactly the same thing every time. I just rolled 3 there, and every single one has followed exactly the same track as the one before, and I think a lot of people may blame greens for the putt going either way, but I think that just shows that if you've got the exact right line, it will hold the line on greens. It's quite impressive.
But also, you're creating the perfect roll as the ball goes. So surely there's going to be some, when people say, oh, the ball jumped or whatever it was, you know, maybe that's actually their attack angle into the ball, or they're not fitted correctly up for a putter, you know?
And speed as well, because I'm rolling off exactly the same point every time, so it's coming out of exactly the same speed every time, which is and that is so important with putting as well.
So back to the actual Plumb Bob reading. Yeah. Okay. How far away am I? Like, because those putts, like, don't get me wrong, I actually think you could probably, because they were dying in the left corner, weren't they? They were going in the left edge of the putt, of the hole. Yeah. Do you think that actually, because I mean, is that aiming just outside my mark?
I think it was just slightly outside. I would probably say it's where the aim point was 2%.
Okay.
But you're not far, got that. Yeah, you're not far off. I'd say maybe an inch away from being bang on. But if you hit that, that could be the line for a slightly firmer pace than what I'm rolling these at now. So, because obviously the speed as well, you know, this speed is going to change if the green's been cut or not been cut. So the stimp meter reading is massively important on the amount of break that you play anyway, but that's a pretty good guide.
And that's all it really is. For me, it's a guide. It gives me a rough idea, because once I've found my mark of roughly where I'm going to move it off from, then I'm going to maybe walk down the other side of the hole and then gauge what type of speed that I'm going to put into it, because obviously that will determine where I'm going to hit it towards the hole anyway.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
So I've got this right here as a point, which is where the shaft is going through. Okay, which, based on your aim point, what is that? If you put fingers up to that, what percentage is that from that position there, from there?
About 1%.
So I've got that at 1%. So I think the biggest part of the break is possibly just right in this middle part here.
I think we're looking at, it's probably just under 2% from what I'm getting.
Okay, so it's definitely over 1.5%, isn't it?
So it's just over 2%. Just under 2%.
Just under 2%. So what's aim point giving you as a marker now then?
So based on that, I do the fingers. I've got it a bit more break than yours.
Okay.
Probably almost double, I would say. Out to about here. So we'll do this one at the Plumb Bob.
That's at mine, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like I said, you know when I said it's halfway down, it really starts to shift on us. It flattens out right at the beginning, and then halfway down it starts to really shift.
Okay, let's do this for the aim point.
pretty good. I mean, that just maybe wobbled a fraction in the midsection there, but that was basically tracking all the way in. So you could see mine that was really quite low, whereas yours like held up quite nicely. So definitely that extra, well, that's 3 inches, extra 3 or 4 inches there outside that marker is definitely more like the line based on that. And you got to remember, the percentages are changing as it comes down the putt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you doing 2% or 1.5%, that's so subject to what happens in each section, isn't it? So guesstimating that as well is not a perfect science.
No, it's not. It's always a guess. It's always a guess. And I think what we can conclude from yours, based on what we're seeing there, is it gives you a very good rough guide, but maybe it's not quite calibrated correctly to give you an exact. So maybe you just need to factor in that maybe your Plumb Bob isn't giving you enough read, so you maybe need to add a little bit more onto the read. But
there's actually a human element that goes into it as well. I mean, my putting historically has always been a little bit club face, a little bit open. So I tend to, when my eyes look over the ball, my putter, if I get it too square, it actually looks like it's aiming left. So there's that human element that might be that I just aim that putter just a fraction outside where my Plumb Bob is pointing me towards as well.
I think
so there's other things into it, isn't there?
The key is you've tested it, and that perfect putter tells you exactly what's going on. So I think, you know, based on what we're seeing, I think it's pretty close, but it maybe just needs a little bit more or less, and I think maybe if you work on that and calibrate and spend more time using that perfect putter, you can then calibrate yourself to know exactly how the Plumb Bob does work. But it gives you a good guide.
I think it does. So there you go, there's a little insight into obviously Plumb Bob for a start, and obviously how I use it. And for me, it's given me a really good indicator as to actually whether it works. I mean, I've been using it now for 20 years. Okay, on and off when I'm on the golf course. I'm definitely on every round of golf that I play. I'm pretty much using the Plumb Bob to give me an idea, a gauge as to where I'm going with it. But what's actually quite satisfying is that really I'm not that far away. I probably need a little bit more work with it, as in with using the perfect putt that Paul has there, to give me a better idea exactly what the lines are. But from a gauge, a rough idea from where I'm going, I think it works really, really well. Let me know, put your comments down below. Do you use a Plumb Bob? I'd really like to know, and I'd like to know if you do use it, how do you calibrate? How do you figure out where the actual aiming position or the balance point of the putter is going to be? I'd like to hear in your comments down below. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you like what you're seeing, and as always, stay safe, and we'll catch up with you again soon.